a comprehensive look at trends, fund profiles, and more in Exploring ETFs.
We're going to talk now about top performing energy ETFs with our ETF research director, Nina Mishra. And when we talk about energy, what we really mean to say is oil, right?
Mainly oil, to a certain extent natural gas too.
Okay.
But these are oil and gas producing companies, mainly oil.
So oil's been doing good lately.
Oil has in fact been soaring.
I mean, for some people.
Yeah, it's been soaring for the past few weeks, and there are many reasons why prices have been soaring. There is increasing demand, rising geopolitical risks, and then there is the speculation that the Trump administration is going to withdraw from the Iran deal. Now, they have until May 12th, I think, to decide their position. But if the deal breaks down, that could mean reimposition of sanctions on Iran. And that could lead to further spike in oil prices, because Iran is the fourth largest, they have the fourth largest oil reserves in the world, and in the past sanctions had curbed their production and exports to a great extent. And of course we all know that geopolitical risk in the Middle East region have been rising. That has also been contributing to this increase in oil prices. And with synchronized global growth, all developed and emerging economies have been rising, so there is increase in demand too. And of course OPEC had put production caps about 18 months back to support oil prices. And it seems that those caps are working now, because oil inventories have come down and prices have been rising. Now, if investors believe that this trend of rising oil prices is going to continue, then they can play it in two ways. They can either invest in oil ETF, oil commodity ETFs and ETNs. Now, those ETFs and ETNs use futures to track oil prices. So that is why they are better for traders rather than for long-term investors. And we'll discuss those in our next weekly video.
Okay.
Another way, which I think is better for longer-term investors, is to invest in energy ETFs. These ETFs hold oil and gas companies, and we are discussing some of those best performing ETFs.
So they're a little bit more diversified with the oil and the gas exposure.
Exactly, and there are some which have broad exposure to the entire energy industry. There are some that focus on E&P companies. So there are different type of ETFs available, choices available to investors.
So does that diversification then maybe lessen the effect of spikes in prices up or down?
Definitely it does. And there are market cap weighted ETFs which focus more, which have a lot of exposure to big oil companies. Then there are equal weighted exposure, which have equal weightings to all big and small companies. So it depends upon what you like and whether you think smaller companies will do better going forward, or bigger companies will continue to do well.
All right, let's take a look at a few of these here that you brought with you. First, there's the iShares U.S. Oil and Gas Exploration and Production ETF.
So the ticker is IEO, and as the name suggests, it focuses on oil and gas exploration and production company. It's a market cap weighted ETF. It's pretty popular, and if you go to the quote page on Zacks.com, you can look at all the details about this ETF. The expense ratio is 44 basis points. They have a dividend yield as well, and from there you can go to the external ETF sponsors quote page. Now, as I mentioned, it's a market cap weighted ETF. So bigger oil companies, they account for a lot of allocation in this ETF. Top 10 holdings account for almost 60% of the assets. And if you look at the holdings, ConocoPhillips, Valero, and Marathon are among the top holdings, and these three companies have done really well over the past 1 year, and this year as well. They are up, all three of them are up more than 15% year to date. So that has resulted in excellent performance by this ETF. It is up about 9% this year.
All right, and then there's the First Trust NASDAQ Oil and Gas ETF.
So the ticker is FTXN. It uses, selects the 50 most liquid oil and gas companies and then uses a factor weighted index for weighting those companies, and the factors which are used are volatility, value, and growth. Those are used for weighting the holdings. So again, you can go to the Zacks.com quote page for further details about this ETF. You can see that it has an expense ratio of 60 basis points and a nice dividend yield of 1.6%. You can go to First Trust website for the ETF, and you can you see here that oil exploration and production companies account for about 60% of the portfolio. Integrated oil and gas for about 28%, oil equipment and services for about 7%. You can look at the holdings too, and again you see the same familiar companies as we saw in case of the first ETF, Marathon, Valero, Phillips, Chevron, but you will see that their weights are much lower than in IEO. This ETF is also up more than 8% this year. It's done very well.
Yeah, not bad. And then finally, the PowerShares DWA Energy Momentum portfolio.
Okay, so this is, the ticker is PXI first. So this is an interesting ETF. It selects and weights the companies by their price momentum. It's a momentum weighted ETF, and this also charges 60 basis points. You can look at all those details on Zacks.com quote page, and you can, if you want to look at the holdings, you can go to PowerShares website for this ETF, and you will see that you will see familiar companies over there too. Oil and consumable fuels account for 87% of the portfolio, equipment and services for a little more than 11%, and again Marathon is the top holding, but it accounts for only 4.5% of the portfolio. It is up more than 5% this year. And
so how do they all stack up with each other?
Yes. So on this page, I have compared the performance of this ETF with the broader energy ETF with the ticker XLE, which is up about 3%, just about 3% this year. The S&P 500 ETF, which represents the broader market, is almost flat for the year. The first two ETFs by iShares and First Trust, they are up more than 9%, and the product by PowerShares is up more than 5%.
All right, do you own either of these?
I don't.
All right, check out more ETF information, always on our website, always in the ETF section. Use the Funds tab in the top toolbar on the home page, and it'll help get you there. With Nina, I'm Terry Ruffalo.